on AChessB. We're going to go over the games from the candidates today. Check out the openings, check out the tactics, check out the end games, all from the unique AChessB point of view. So I hope you guys enjoy this. If you haven't seen my streams before, if you have any comments for me to improve while I do this stream, please feel free to let me know, and I will do the best that I can. All right, today let's start out with probably the biggest game, though. Wang Hao defeats Ding Liren with the black pieces. So a really incredible game, and we'll get to the rest of the games later on in the show, but let's start here. Ding Liren versus Wang Hao. Start out with a nice English opening, King's English, Ding fianchettos the light squared bishop immediately, and d3. Already this d3 move is very rare for Grandmaster games, so this is clearly some of Ding's preparation for the candidates. So unfortunately, it didn't work out for him as he intended. Ding Liren has played a couple of games here. He played a game against Grishchuk in 2019, and a couple other high-profile games have been played here. But overall, this is a fairly rare line, and we'll see what happens. Wang Hao castles, knight c3, and c6, knight f3. And now we're starting to really get into unknown territory. According to the Lichess database, only 3 games have been played here. And rook e8 by Wang Hao is the novelty here, although it makes sense. Black is going to want to be able to push in the center here with the d5 and e4. And rook e8 is a move that does support play like this. Stockfish has rook e8 as the second best move when it looks at the position here. Knight bd7 is the initial Stockfish recommendation, which has been played before in a game between two fairly lower rated players. But so rook e8 is the novelty by Wang Hao. Game continues, knight a4, Ding goes after the bishop, so bishop to b4, a3. Ding really wants to eliminate this dark squared bishop. a5, b4, and now e4. And now this is a good move by Ding because it stops d5 and e4 in the near future. So this game is fairly stable. I feel like I like Ding's chances here, although it's still very equal because Ding will get his pieces out and will have a bit better play because he has slightly better development than Wang Hao right now. So Wang Hao immediately begins operations with a5, bishop b2, knight a6. Probably not the most accurate, welcoming b5. And yeah, there are trades that happen here. After a4, this pawn structure for black looks a little bit peculiar. Black has given up control over d5 from a pawn, and white's pieces look a little bit more active. White could get a rook on the c file here. Bishop g4, rook a3, and an interesting rook lift by Ding. He defends the d3 pawn for later, and I'm not quite sure as to the other points of this move, but this game is still fairly equal. Knight d7, h3, bishop h5, queen to b1. We're still very, very much within the bounds of equality. And b6, Wang Hao seals the pawn structure and eliminates some weaknesses of the c5 and a5 pawns. So a decent move, and this also makes it a lot harder for Ding to activate this rook on a3. Knight to d2, and again, Ding is wanting to remaneuver his pieces. This knight could be coming to c4 in some lines, or could be coming to b3 to protect d4. So knight f8, Wang Hao also starts remaneuvering the knights. Bishop f3, offering a trade of light squared bishops. Queen g5. h4, and now this is interesting. Ding is inviting this trade here, and he would win the bishop pair, and this could be very interesting after something like knight e6, bishop to c1. Wang Hao's queen could get pushed around, so it's interesting to see that Wang Hao does not go for this. Instead, Wang Hao goes queen to g6, and Ding persists with queen to d1, forcing Wang to trade bishops. Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and h5, queen f5. So now Ding wants to bring off the queens, sorry, and can't blame him. In most of the lines here, he is slightly better. And I would prefer Ding's bishop on b2 to Wang's bishop on c7. So rook a to d8, the queens are traded, and the king starts coming into the game. Natural progression for both sides here, and up until this point, both players have played very, very good chess up to this point, but now Ding begins to err. This d-pawn could become a liability later, so rook to d1, securing everything seems best before Ding proceeds with f4. But Ding goes for f4 immediately, and this seems to be a mistake. E captures, bishop captures, knight captures, g captures, and f5. And Wang Hao has suddenly made big improvements into his position. His rook now has access points through the g file. Wang Hao has this bishop versus a knight. Currently, it's unclear which is better, but the bishop already is eyeing f4. Ding's d3 pawn could turn out to be a real weakness in some lines. So, thanks to a little bit premature f4 by Ding, Wang Hao suddenly has a better game here. So e5, sealing off the bishop, rook e6, king f3, rook g6. As we said, Wang Hao is bringing this rook in on the g file. So knight e3, Ding attempts to remaneuver, king to e6. And as you can see, most of Wang Hao's pieces are fairly active in their locations, and he's probably a smidgen better in this position. So rook to d1 by Ding, and now bishop to d8. I was watching this live, and it seemed like if Wang Hao didn't have this resource bishop to d8 to go after the h-pawn, it seems like Ding could defend this actually pretty well. But so Wang Hao finds a very useful bishop to d8, rook a2 by Ding, and it's very interesting. Rook h1 was very much worth considering here now that Wang Hao has removed the possibility from doubling on the d file in the near future. So rook h1 defending the h-pawn looks to be better. Stockfish recommends rook to c3, trying to hold the ship that way. But rook to a2, and I think this is where it really starts to go wrong for Ding. He is in some pretty serious time trouble here, around a minute on the clock, but I'm not so sure that the way he handled the position was anywhere correct. So rook to d4, Wang Hao activates his pieces. He keeps this threat of capturing on h4, doesn't cash in on it immediately. Instead, he adds pressure to f4, he adds pressure to a2, he adds pressure to d3, and his vision is clearly better. So knight to c2, Ding kicks the rook away, but the problem is after rook to d5, it's pretty clear that Wang Hao is now the one with more activity. So knight c3, rook back to d7 to avoid a repetition by Wang Hao, and it now is Ding's chance to break out. And if he wants to play, he's going to get it here. So d4, rook takes, pawn takes. Ding has sacrificed a pawn, but after knight to c2, king to d5, he does stand chances of holding this after knight captures on c4. You take this, and Ding has successfully made his way into a rook ending with equal material, and as a little joke, all rook endings are drawn, and Ding should have no problem holding this. He should have busted out with a d4 here, and that probably would have saved the game for him, but instead rook d to d2, and this just looks too passive. Ding needed to play actively here with d4, and he failed to do so, and Wang Hao was quick to capitalize. Bishop captures on h4. Wang Hao has now won a pawn cleanly, has this nice open past h-pawn, and he could start pushing the g-pawn down, and things could get interesting. So rook to g2, and Wang Hao finds a very, very excellent resource of getting his pawns in motion. Rook to g4, and now he's sacrificing the exchange here. But if you take this immediately, let's say f captures on g4 with check here, these pawns are suddenly very strong for Wang. He'll retreat the bishop to e7, let's say king e2, bishop e7, and it'll be kind of difficult for Ding to stop these pawns without giving the exchange back. And by then, Wang Hao will have made serious gains in the position, probably taking off this f-pawn as well, and Wang Hao should be much better. So Ding declines the exchange here by playing rook h2, and Wang Hao just says, bring it to me, bring it to me. g6, and it's simply beautiful, and there's nothing that Ding can do to stop these pawns. He tries taking the exchange, and now f captures on g4, the correct recapture from Wang Hao. Now both the h and the g pawns are passed, and after king e3, bishop e7, these pawns are going to become incredibly strong very fast. There's really nothing for Ding to do here, and he plays rook a to c2, and after h4, Ding resigns the game because he gets g3, king f5 will happen. The king will start coming toward the pawns. The bishop supports the pawns well from where it is, and really about it. So if we really look at this position, there really isn't much that Ding can do here, so he resigned. Alright, and also Ace Noob, I see your challenge up there. I will get to you, but we will finish with our scheduled programming first of the candidates after party. So if you want to hang around, please do so. I hope that this show will be entertaining for you somewhat, or at least informative, or something that you want to watch. But I will get to you pretty soon, Ace Noob, after we finish the rest of the games. All right, so the second decisive game today was between Anish Yuri and Jan Nepomniachtchi, and it was a really impressive game from Nepo in the ending. Yuri was more or less forced to give up his queen, and Jan did a very good job of converting this advantage from where he was. So let's take a look at this rest T opening, and turns into a bit of an English. Let's see if we can get this opening explorer engaged. All right, so opening explorer d4 by Anish going for the center. Captures on d4, e6, d3, queen to b6. All of this has been played a good bit, probably 1,000 times at least. Knight b to d5 is a pretty common theme in situations like this where black has this setup. Knight b to d5 is annoying, threatens certain hops, and could be useful later. So knight e5, nothing extremely out of the ordinary here. Bishop f4 and knight f to g4 is really aggressive out of Nepo. He's targeting f2 here immediately, and we shall see what happens. So e3 by Anish, a6, h3, a captures on b5, h captures on g4, knight takes on c4, rook to c1. Here's the novelty from Anish. Queen to b3 has been played before in Grandmaster games. And it makes sense. You're threatening to capture the knight on c4 because of the spin on the queen. But rook to c1, evidently this is some of Anish's preparation. d5, Nepo strikes in the center. b3, bishop to b4, very impressive stuff here by Nepo. He's offering this piece, but the problem is after capturing, there's rook to a3, and it's going to be extremely difficult for Anish to hold this piece. We'll say bishop e5, and now f6. This is the game continuation as of right now. Anish is trying to hold the piece, but he's struggling too. Bishop to d4 and queen a5 keeps up the pressure. This knight is pinned, and there's really nothing more that Anish can do to hold the piece. So he plays bishop e2, gives the piece back. Bishop takes on c3, rook takes on c3, rook takes, and king f1. Anish needs to step out of this pretty lethal discovery here. And now Nepo plays in a little bit of style, offering even more material with b4. And this is offering the exchange to get a very, very powerful passed pawn on c3. And Yuri declines. He goes for g5. So e5, and prompts Yuri to take the exchange. G captures on f6, G captures on f6. Queen to b1. And this is a very non-standard position, if you could say. Black has this pawn on c3. Neither side has castled and gotten their kingside rook into the game. So we'll see what happens here. Queen to c7 was played by Nepo. Queen d3 and b5. Nepo is not one to hang around. He is playing very actively here. Queen captures on c3. B captures on c4 and e4. And Yuri is bringing the fight in this game. This is a really great game here. D captures on e4, rook h4. Instead of the immediate recapture on c4, Yuri develops a piece and renews the same threat that he has, and also develops a new one of capturing on e4. So great stuff from both players right here. Bishop e6. Yuri captures on e4 and castles by Nepo on move 28, which is not something that you see every day in online games on Lichess. I've castled on, say, move 25 before, but I don't think I've ever seen castling on move 28, so kudos to Nepo to pulling this off. And bishop captures on c4 from Anish. Equalizes completely in material, but the problem is this setup for pieces is slightly awkward for Yuri, and you'll see what I mean later. King g7 and queen b3. Now, it's very likely that Yuri might have missed rook to b8 along the lines here, and rook to b8 more or less forces Yuri to give up his queen, because if he wants to really avoid the queen trade, queen a4, bishop to d7, let's say he goes back, bishop f5, and now Yuri really cannot get out of losing the material, whether it's the exchange on g4 or this bishop on c4. So rook to b8 more or less forces Yuri to give up his queen for the bishop and the rook. So Yuri takes the opportunity, bishop captures on e6, rook takes b3, rook g4 check, king f8, and bishop takes. And now Nepo has to get his queen out of the way because the threat is rook g8, king e7, rook g7 check, which would win the queen back for Yuri. So obviously Nepo doesn't fall for this. Goes for queen c1, king to g2, queen to c6, king to g1, h5. And now we really begin the technical part of the game for Nepo. He is up a queen for a rook and a bishop, but he needs to convert this into victory, and Nepo does a very good job of this. I will move fairly quickly over most of this so that we can get a little bit quicker into what the winning idea is here. Nepo has picked off Yuri's bishop, but Yuri is hoping for a fortress over here on the king side, and Nepo keeps on pushing. And now rook e3 by Yuri, and it's hard to blame him because he's trying to keep the fortress that he has. Queen to d5, according to Stockfish, is very strong here. But king f5 by Nepo, it's hard to say that that's a mistake either. Nepo wants to put his king on h5, as was mentioned in the live broadcast. So Yuri can't really stop this that easily. King f6, and Yuri is kind of in a zugzwang here. He doesn't really have anything to do, so he kind of has to move his rook away from the g file. So Nepo lands his king on h5. And now Yuri has picked off the h-pawn, and now the winning method is pretty simple. Nepo will get his king in position here, and then will sacrifice the queen back to go into a winning king and pawn ending. For example, now if Yuri takes the queen, this pawn for Nepo is going to be unstoppable. King c3, king e1, king c2, and there is no stopping this pawn. So Nepo wins a very nice game. Very crazy game, a lot of material thrown around, but an incredible performance from Nepo and an incredible performance from Yuri to last as long as he did and to put up a lot of resistance in that rook versus queen ending. So take a little bit at some of the drawn games from today. We have Grishchuk versus Kirill Alexenko, the wild card. Really interesting to see how Alexenko will do here, as he really is the underdog. Is 25 rating points under everyone else in the tournament, maybe even 30 to 35, and is a solid 150 almost under Fabi Caruana. So he's really going to have to put up a fight, but he's going to have to win some games at some point. That's not saying that a draw against Grishuk with black is bad, but he's going to need to get wins sooner versus later. And he had a slight lead in time here, but it would have been nice for him if he could have done something more. So here we see something really interesting. This is the same opening from the Ding Liren Vong Hao game. So really interesting to see how this gets to play out. D5. And what's interesting is this is a game that Grishchuk has played from the black side against Ding. So does he have any special preparation? We probably have to assume that he does. Captures on D5. Knight to C3, and we're still following his game with Ding. Knight captures on C3 is the novelty from Alexenko. Hard to say that it's a bad move, but again, we have multiple novelties as early as move 6, which is almost unprecedented at high-level chess. So this Canada's tournament promises to be very, very interesting. B captures on C3, and a lot of maneuvering is done by both sides. I'll fast forward to the part where both sides get into time trouble because it is quite fascinating here. And now the fireworks really start here with Alexenko sacrificing a piece on c4 as bait. Obviously, you capture this. Bishop to c5 forces white to jettison material back. And this, after capturing the knight on h4, Alexenko would be completely winning here as he is up the exchange, and this pawn structure on the queen side is not going to be great for Grishchuk, but good creativity from Alexenko finding knight to c4, bishop back to c1. Obviously, Grishchuk is over 2750. He does not fall for simple things like this. Bishop to c5, d4, that's the difference. Capturing on c4 prevented d4 from happening. Bishop back to e7, and more retreats happen. f5, and Alexenko has to strike at the center. Otherwise, it risks becoming a little bit too good for Grishchuk here. Both sides are in pretty serious time trouble. They have to make 18 more moves, or rather 17, to reach time control at move 40. There is an increment, but things promise to get exciting. Queen e2, knight to d6, retreats the knight e5. Grishchuk grabs more space. Knight e4, knight back to d2, and that gets traded. And now Grishchuk is beginning to push here. He has a little bit of an edge, and Aleksenko offers him a pawn with a6. Probably not the best way to go, but when both of you are under 2 minutes, you pose the guy unique problems to solve, I guess. Queen captures a6, rook a8, queen takes b6, bishop to d5, and Aleksenko is upping the ante here. He's down 2 pawns, but it is very interesting. Both of them in severe time trouble here. Rook a1, all the rooks get traded, the bishop gets taken, king takes, and queen d5 check, and really from now on, Aleksenko has an easy draw just by a perpetual check here, and they agreed to a draw here. But a very, very interesting game and an interesting fight in time trouble here from both sides. Aleksenko is down too much material to think about grabbing this. Yes, he's down a pawn, but it would give white probably too much. Play here, king d3, you capture on h2. You end up giving white this pawn, and I personally would not want to play this against Grishchuk, especially as this is move 44, time control has been reached, and the good move by Aleksenko going for the draw by perpetual, but a very, very exciting game. So now finally, let's pop back up here to the top board. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave gets into the candidates tournament late as a replacement for Timur Rajabov, and now he gets to face Fabiano Caruana in round 1. What a draw. But so the question here is, would Fabi go for his Petrov defense that he has liked to use in top events like this? He does not, and we go for a nice Rui Lopez, and we go immediately into a Berlin. So this has been played a lot in standard chess over a long period of time. So this is very interesting. It's the first really mainstream opening to be played a lot so far in the first round. So fairly standard stuff by both sides. Rook b8, trying to place the rook on the b file. All very, very well known. a5, pushing by Maxime. So the interesting question is what if Maxime what if Fabi takes this pawn? And the answer really is not much, because yes, Maxime would be down the exchange, but the forks for him on c6 and f7 are going to be so that he gains back the material, whether it's through the knight c6 check fork or the knight takes f7 fork. So Fabi, not interested in simplifications, goes bishop a7, h3 castles, bishop e3, e captures d4, c captures. All this has been played. Knight to b4. We're still in the realm of theory here, and I'm assuming both players are still in their preparation. Knight g5, queen e7 has been played before twice. Never at this high of a level, but e5, d captures, knight captures on f7 from Maxime. And this is very interesting because capturing is not going to be good for Fabi because he still has this pin. The knight is currently under attack, and this bishop hangs on a7. So it's not going to be good for Fabi to take the knight. So e4 instead. And knight to d6, here's the novelty. Knight to g5 check had been played before. King to h8, and trades happen. And this is really the most exciting part of the game has passed. But from now on, the game really just simplifies fairly quickly into a drawish ending here. And with not too many pawns being on the board, there's not really too much to do for either side, especially because they're all on the outside of the board. Opposite colored bishops, and just nobody's getting mated on the back rank. Pretty simple. And all the queenside pawns get traded, and this is really dead drawn because there's really no way that either of these guys could win. Even if they push it very hard, there's just nothing to do here. It's opposite colored bishops and rooks, pawns on one side of the board where the kings already are. This really is completely dead drawn. So that is the candidates after party recap. I thank you guys all for watching, and now I am going to pose a question for my viewers. If you guys could post your answer in the chat, and we'll see how this turns out. So after today's results with Wang Hao and Nepo winning, does this change who your favorite is at the candidates? Since Fabi and Ding drew and lost respectively today. So does Wang Hao and Nepo winning change your opinion on who is going to win the candidates this year? So that is y'all's daily question for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Candidates After Party with AChessB. And I will be back here tomorrow after round 2 at the same time, covering all that happened in the candidates tournament that day. So thank you guys very much.